area. And I mean, it's a great privilege to have someone young, very vibrant to speak to us on a very important topic that I believe is going to help a lot of young people. And thanks so much everyone who's joined on the studio, those on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So without wasting too much of our time, we're going to let Mr. Dennis introduce himself, and then we'll go straight to the section. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Yamo. I'd like to say thank you for having me, my brother. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dennis, a Liberian based in Beijing. I'm a PhD candidate at Tsinghua University, studying international relations and foreign policies. I've been interested in researching Africa, sort of special economic zones, and it's a pleasure to be here. And outside of academics, I am also involved with business, and so I appreciate the time to get to talk to you and also learn from your own experience and how we can move Africa forward. Thank you for having me, Yamo.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so this is Mr. Dennis. The floor is yours.
Thank you, my brother. I'd like to say thanks again for having me, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of us joining from different time zones. Appreciate the fact that you could take up your time to join this episode. So today's discussion is basically on a very important topic that has a relations with all of us who are involved in Afro entrepreneurship and startups. So we're discussing uh, beyond capital and how young people can sustain innovation and entrepreneurship, uh, even in times when financing for SDG driven sort of initiatives are very limited. And given that much attention has been driven to development finance in Africa, the overall idea of this my discussion today is to challenge this notion that we need everything to start. I mean, one of the key things that we'll be taking away today is that we should start with whatever we have, and that could go a long way. So I will be using my own joining as an example and the many success stories of some amazing Afro entrepreneurs who are helping to find practical solutions to Africa's problem. So this is what my agenda for today looks like. Hopefully, we have much time to also do some interactions and learn from each other. But I would love to start off by giving us a brief sort of context into Africa's own, development finance and the needs of our continent. So every day, young people are innovating. So people are finding practical applications or sort of solutions to Africa's problems. But it will it will be of no surprise that all of us are hindered by a single, problem. This issue of access to finance. Um, you know, the issue of financing, it is not just one country problem or say a community problem. I think it's a continental problem because you see the continent itself has a financial gap of 402 billion just for structural transformation. And it is said that the reform alone accounts for 42% of that amount. And interestingly, the overall needs of Africa, to achieve the SDGs accounts at 1.3 trillion. And just to put this into perspective, that's basically like 68 to 108 billion, for infrastructure alone, and something around 242 billion per year when it comes to climate finance until 2050. And most of these financing actually come from these multilateral institutions such as the World Bank, the IMF, and what have you. And even when it comes to national priority, because these fundings are on a state to institution basis, they do not really have that trickle down effect on youth entrepreneurship. But what makes this even more urgent is the fact that Africa has one of the largest, not even the largest, but the fastest growing young population compared to any other continent. And in fact, it is estimated by 2050, one in every four persons of the earth will be of African descent or African. So if we kind of hold this projection to be true, how then do we utilize this huge human resource for Africa's growth and development? Especially given that a huge portion of our youngest population on the continent are unemployed. So, but notwithstanding, like I believe it is essential for young people to reframe these challenges and begin to create SDG aligned, solutions without waiting for the perfect conditions. This is the actual essence of our discussion today. But it would be important for us to talk about scarcity a little bit. Most of us have seen scarcity on the continent as a weakness. But what if we look at scarcity as a competitive advantage? Because actually, Yamo, um, constraints often sort of reinforce creativity, and it sort of pushes us to think differently and do more with less. And regardless of the initiatives we find ourselves in, where this is where entrepreneurship happens when we don't have anything and we're trying to find solutions to Africa's problems. So I bet you permit me to say that scarcity itself doesn't have to limit us; it can unlock us. And but to unlock these advantages, we it is essential for us to understand the needs of our communities. And I have found that that understanding of Africa's needs, most of them are also enshrined within the Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, most of us are acquainted with the SDGs and are even involved. We know that there are just 17 blueprints for global peace, prosperity, and sustainability. And though I think all 17 are fundamental to global development, some are more practical to the issues that we face in Africa, and which makes them, some sort of strategic tools for Africa's prosperity. And with that being said, I would like to highlight few young entrepreneurs who have been doing really well with SDG aligned initiatives on the continent. The brother Elisha from Ghana has been a huge inspiration for some of us who are from places like Liberia or even uh, anywhere in Africa. We understand how traditional farming can be, and our grandparents will always try to use this old model to predict the weather and stuff. But what Luscious is doing is to add some sort of like modern touch to farming, like using tech based and sort of like weather forecast to tell farmers when to like water their crops, and these small and sort of like modern information really help farmers to increase and sort of multiply the harvest and even mitigate this issue of climate change. And there has been a very big market as well for smallholder farming in Africa. Um, Twega has also been involved with this SDG2 in terms of seeing to it that we meet zero hunger in Africa. Last time I was in Kenya, I had the opportunity to meet with some of the people. Um, uh, you see, they've also been involved with this sort of like not just food security, right? They also been involved in like reducing waste. Because I'm often asked by my friends who I meet in the UN sometimes, and they're asking like, but with all of the resources and fertile soil Africa has, why do we face why do we still face these challenges with hunger and things around? And my answer to them usually is that Africa faces this challenge of hunger and food security not because we lack food. I think it stems from the issue of food management, logistics, and as well as preservation. Because to give you an example, right? In Liberia, we have two seasons. We have the the rainy season and the dry season. I mean, typically 6 months each. In the dry season and mid rainy season, like we have a lot of mangoes. Mangoes, they also grow in Nigeria, right? But it will surprise you to note that even as the yield for mango in the dry season gets higher, even past 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 the dry season and you go on to the rainy season, you don't really see that much mango. It is not that mango is limited, right? But it's because most of what was harvested within the rainy season got wasted. We didn't even consume all. So how do we then preserve our food beyond season so that we can access them, we can have them to eat all season and all year round? Another issue in terms of farming as well has been the fact that farmers, most of our farmers, they live in the rural areas, and this thing of logistics has been a challenge because farmers, they harvest their agriculture produce and from the rural area up onto the market, 50% of the harvest are perishable, and they do not even reach the market. And so I think this issue of logistics and sort of preservation is still a huge industry for Afro entrepreneurship. Going forward to healthcare in terms of SDG 3, the brother Gregory, also from Ghana, has been very instrumental in delivering healthcare, to rural areas in Ghana. Even like we know, some of us who live in the suburban areas and even in urban areas, we know that healthcare delivery can be challenging. But Gregory is also using tech base to streamline, like the logistics where more drugs are needed, where ambulance needs to be, and this has been very instrumental in like helping breach that sort of health inequality within Ghana and other like countries nearby. And we could talk about our own brother Muyiwa from Nigeria, who has been very involved with tech education, helping young people, use tech knowledge to sort of solve some of the issues we have with education. And fast forward to our sister, Krista from Rwanda, who has been involved as well in clean water SDG 6. Like rural water delivery is also a big issue within the continent. She has been very involved with that. And it comes to my own little baby, DTech Solar. I mean, I started DTech Solar when I was completing my bachelor's degree. So I'm in China researching regional integration and its own impact on economic development in Africa. And a part of my research fundings, uh, the continent, the region, I should say, has been very good in terms of connectivity. Connectivity, I would say the openness, right? We have the same passport and we move around without visa access. Um, but one thing that has been clear, though we move and the degree of openness is good and is welcoming and promising, we don't really trade with each other like that. We don't really trade with one another like that. And most of what we consume are brought from outside, they're imported. But then at the very core you know, uh, of that issue is the fact that we don't produce. And at the core of less production has been energy, right? So I also thought to find a solution to this sort of problem. And though mine was really on a very small scale, actually tailored to rural energy access, it also had a somewhat big impact on my community. So DTech Solar is actually an intermediary sort of solar company that designs small SHS modules, the small household solar products for rural areas. We have done some pay-as-you-go modules for rural Liberia. We've done Sierra Leone and other African countries around, and our goal is just to help the rural areas find access, to get access to electricity, because not every one of us are on the national grid. You know, like a bulk of Africa uh, does not have access to electricity, and they're not on the electricity grid. And so there has been our own contribution, as far as SDG 7 is concerned. And beyond that, it's not just about putting the lights on, right? Like we cook every day, and we use different forms of energy for heating, for cooking, for lights. Charlotte Magaia, the sister from Kenya, has been very creative with, improving access to clean cooking through her Mukuru clean cooking stove. And through her work, she has provided access to clean cooking for thousands of low income earners. And that has been really instrumental to the SDG. Mambu Johnson, the brother from Liberia again, also is involved with this farming and also using the corner. I'm pretty sure in Nigeria you also have the palm nut that we use for the cooking oil. We use that for even making soap and other things. So for him, he's really involved with increasing the yields of smallholder farmers. To turn the palm kernel into lotion, into soap, and many other products. And we could go back and forth and talk about some other like innovators on the continent, like Bernice Dapa, the sister who has been very uh, creative with sort of different SDGs, but basically within sustainable production. Bernice uses this bamboo, the bamboo stock that we have in excess in Africa to use to make, bicycles, and she has helped young girls find job and also, reduce this issue of walking long distances to school. And this has been very uh, innovative in solving the issues we face with, education and even transportation. But I want to stop here a little bit, just pause a little bit, and like gather from our listeners. I don't know if we have people, but one question I always ask, to sort of introspect a little bit. What do we think is at the core of all of these innovations? Some people could say, let's say, that business, the quest to make money. I don't know. Or what do you think, Yamo? Or what do you think it
I
is
mean,
at
I
the
mean,
very
for
core
me,
of this?
I think that speaking from my space and my interaction with the young people, I think because of the surrounding we find ourselves in Africa, and especially West
Mhm,
Africa as a whole, we're driven by survival, instincts. Yeah,
mhm.
so as we go there, and then we mean the money is the goal, the money is the goal, and when we get the money, that's when we become innovative. So I feel like oftentimes innovation for most Africans and most West Africans starts after we've passed the survival mode, really. But the truth is this: in the very beginning, it's about the money. I mean, I can speak for myself from the very beginning.
Money.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
Exactly.
fair enough. Like, I think the essence of business is to make profit, right? But then I do believe
Mm,
that most of the impactful businesses we see around the world, right, they've
mm,
also come across, they have been successful. Their success is more like attributed to wanting to solve the problems of the
problem.
community.
Mm,
And what I see, as an inspiration through all of these sort of innovations, is the fact that they are looking out for people and waste. Or when we talk about this twigger from Kenya, trying to reduce this waste with agriculture produce, storage, and sort of like logistics, they're just trying to cut down waste. Like try to improve the way we preserve our food beyond seasonal times. Even with Brennies, the bamboo, like we have access, like excess amount of bamboo in Africa, especially in West Africa. There's tropical areas and stuff we have access. And so, how are we using that? What we already have to solve our own problems. You even talk about Mabu Johnson from Liberia. before his innovation, rural farmers who harvested palm nuts, they will only use the palm for oil, and then they'll trash the palm kernel. Some will use it for some of the palm kernel oil, but with its own innovation, it has really helped reduce this issue of waste. So I think what is at the core of all of these innovations is the fact that they all look out for the community. They all look out for how to turn waste into product. You see, and going forward, I think one of the uh, a few ways to sort of identify, this healing hidden assets is to actually observe around us. I think, you know, to 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 look around for what are the challenges our people face, and what are some of the things that we think that they are waste that we can change into something that could be meaningful for our people. So, and one thing I've also realized that we oftentimes don't look at the skills that we already have. People just think about, hey, I don't have money to start. I must have, this thousands, this amount of money to start a business. But sometimes it is just that soft skill you have, maybe that the artist skill you have that could really solve this issue of data management. Maybe you have people in the community, and have how many people have access to electricity. You could put that down. Also, just try to work around with some sort of like soft skills you have that could actually be of need to the community. And like we were talking about waste, right? There are a lot of things around us, I think, that we could use for entrepreneurship. I mean, last time I was watching a documentary of this Ghanaian sort of like a company who is using the wasted rubbers and tires to turn into bricks for building. And even there are some few people who have been involved with the scrap business in Africa. Like yeah, per year they pull scraps in, continue ship abroad to make different products. So I think like most of the things around us are assets, but we're not really looking at them. We're only looking at money. We're only looking at the financial part of it. And another thing I think that has been very uh, available to us that we don't really pay that much attention to is the market intelligence. I tell you for a fact, there are a lot of companies who are abroad who want to understand the African market, but you and I know exactly what the market needs. You go to the market, you go there to buy fish, you go to buy the pepper and other things. You know exactly what the needs of the people are. You know what they're buying. You know what they're not buying. You know what goes during the rainy season. You know what goes during the dry season. All of these information are available to us, right? So how are we using that for our own entrepreneurship, and how do we use that to project some sort of like market trend? And another thing I will also point out to would be network. I think network is a huge asset when it comes to entrepreneurship. But oftentimes we see our friends and our classmates and colleagues just as just friends and acquaintances, right? But like if you're if you're doing a startup, perhaps you have someone who has uh, this sort of tech knowledge. If you're in IT, maybe this guy can code. He can create an app. So instead of you looking for your already limited financial capital to spend on other people who you might as well spend so much for, why not use your friend? Why not use the resources, the sort of like knowledge-based resources that are just around us? So I think these are few hidden assets that we also need to look into, that they are also important for the success of our entrepreneurship. And a few outside finance sort of like a resource I've also been able to tap into, even though I've not been successful with all of them, has been this issue of competitions, grants, and fellowships. I mean, there are a lot of pretty good competitions and like entrepreneurship competitions around the place. Last time I had opportunity to sort of like watch the Jack Ma, this sort of like Africa business hero. I think Mambu Johnson was also a part of that, and other like young entrepreneurs from Africa were was a part of that. I say this to say that when we are creating, sometimes the money may not be there to start, but just getting your project out there for people to critique them, to sort of like find other um, innovators, other entrepreneurs who are working on similar projects or even different projects. It helps a lot because because you think that you're doing the right thing, but when you get out there, the public is very brutal, right? Like they tell you exactly, man, this thing is not going to work. This thing, you have to do this, you have to do that. It helps you a lot because look, uh, I think in our bubble, right? These sort of platforms are important because they allow us to make mistakes and they correct them. But when you step into the market is brutal. It's very unforgiving. And if you don't test your ideas that much, and let other people critique your ideas before they hit the market, you could lose a lot of money. Just from one mistake you make. So I think it is a good thing to want to access these platforms and fellowships and grants. It helps you to continuously tailor your business ideas, your innovation and your startup in the right direction. And then someone might want to say that, oh yeah, like for grants, they're just once in a blue moon, and not everyone gets to be successful at competition and grants. I agree. But one thing I've realized that there is power in crowdsourcing. I mean, I've never gotten any money from the bank for all of my startups that I've done. And but most of my resources have actually come from my surrounding, friends, families, and maybe personal savings. The issue here is, I think there is a need to go back to our roots when it comes to Afro entrepreneurship, especially for young people. Look, I gave you a little bit of story, a short story from my childhood. My mom, my late mom, was a 7 day Adventist, and she used to sell fish within the market to send us to school. Um, and the Adventists to go to church on Saturdays, right? But on Sunday, uh, I'll see my mom and my aunties, the aunties around the community gather at someone's house, and they will be counting money. But I was confused as a child. The issue here is, my mom went to church on Saturday. Why is she going to some sort of gathering? So I thought it was a church gathering, but I was thinking about what sort of church that people go to. They don't sing, they don't do anything, they just give money. But as I grew older, I realized that it was a form of little bank. It's just like some sort of traditional form of banking. This, we called it the Susu Club. So every Sunday, a lot of market women and like even men will go and put a little bit of money into the savings, and then they'll record that. And if someone needs a loan, they take a little portion of that to give it to them to start the market. And then after that, at the end of the year, they'll have a big conference, and like people will celebrate. And those who took a loan all through the year will even have some interest. Look, this model has been very instrumental in financing most of the projects and or most of the businesses our parents have been successful at. But how are we young entrepreneurs using this to our own advantage? Because the bank is not looking at us. The national budget is not looking at us. We are the only ones who are looking at one another. So maybe there's a need to go back to our roots in terms of like how we young people can put hands around one another to push our innovation. If 100 persons in Nigeria or even Liberia or even Ghana gather together and say we're going to put at least $100 behind, this project, behind this business to establish maybe some sort of chicken egg factory, or maybe some sort of whatever you may think about, farm or anything. Eh, I believe that's 10,000 already. $100. I know it is not easy within our respective countries, but at least some of us, most of us can sort of thrive during the year to raise $50, even $100. How do we bring all of those meager resources around to use it for one project? And at the end of the day, we could all share, like incomes. We could all share shares, right? And we could be successful at that. I think there is power in this community we share, because Ubuntu now, I am because you are because I am. It is that model I think we actually have to gather around. And I see a similar thing as this, in other places, regions of Africa, like the piggy vest in Nigeria has also been a thing that has been rolling out, similar to the susu thing within Liberia. Do you see that? I see that it has been very common within Central Africa, and you could talk about Kilimo, there's sort of like Juhudi in Kenya as well, and many other sort of creative traditional modules. I think those are very, very effective when it comes to this issue of finding money for our respective projects. And but at the very sort of like end of my discussion today, um, I really want to leave us with something really important. And then through my own experience as a young entrepreneur, trying to find my way, there have been few experiences I've learned from, and I will just water them down to this idea of skilling. I think skilling is a very important thing, and knowing when to do that, it can also save you as well. So I would attribute the S in that skill to this caution to start small but smart. I mean, like when we're talking about ideas and businesses, we create a website and the social media. We are so excited. We want to like sort of engulf the entire Africa, the entire continent. But there is there is an incentive in starting small, because when you start small, you get to actually understand the market. You actually get to test, your products. You know what the people need. The market gives you a direct feedback. If the product is not good, it's not good. And if you are bringing five products to the market and people are buying it within that time, you say, oh, it's doing well. Let me do 10, let me do 20, let me do 100. And gradually, gradually, gradually. I think that's a very safe way to go. I mean, that could be a bit not so practical in certain industries. I understand that. But then for young people who are just starting off and not having that much access to resources, you really want to start gradually. And the C in us connecting with our community, like I mentioned, Ubuntu is a very good African sort of principle that we should leverage. There's so much power in our community. When you do a business, get to bring some people around. Like talk to your friends who share similar interests, and in terms of funding, if you don't have, I'd say look outside as well. Because then if you find a Nigerian solution to one of Nigeria's problem, it's not just a Nigerian problem. It is not just a Ghanaian problem. Because actually most of the issues we face in Africa are just similar to each other. So if you find an energy solution in Ghana, and you can't find resources for that business, my brother, look outside. My sister, look outside. Because maybe in Nigeria, funding is limited, right? But then maybe in Sierra Leone, yes, funding is also limited, but there are people there who might have access to what you don't have in Nigeria. So it is an African thing. It is a global thing. Don't be too confined to your Nigerianness or your Nigerian space or your Ghanaian space, because this thing is about Africa. It's about finding solution that we can scale. So just this connectivity and staying in touch with your community is also very important. And the A in our skill stands for activating hidden assets. As I mentioned, a lot of things that we see around us as waste, they are actually assets. If you look at Bernie's Dapper, people they felt the bamboo. We use that for benches, yeah, for other things, but most times we just trash them. She's using that. She's using what she already has, to find solution to transportation. Mambu Johnson is using what we already have in Liberia, uh, to recreate soap and lotion for the market, and we could talk about many other successful businesses who are just using waste. It's a huge asset. Instead of you just looking for money to spend beyond maybe import a few products here and there, we have a lot of resources around us that we could use, and we're not taking advantage of them. So we should also be very observant in looking for what do we want to achieve and what is already available and how they are not being used for the better. And fourth on the list is the L. The L stands for leveraging our social and financial capital. And this could even reinforce this issue of community as well. Like you want to start small, you want to start smart, and use your social capital as well. If the financial capital is not there, you want to use the social capital as well, because we have friends. I mean, we got to meet on Instagram, right? And before you know, we're kicking it. So, like, if it was not because of social media, perhaps we wouldn't have met, for now. So I say, yes, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. What are we there for? Are we just there for maybe, like posting about our daily activities? But there are a lot of young people who are doing the same thing that we are doing. So what do we not just, what can we just get together and form a formidable force for good? So I think using social capital is also really important. And lastly is the issue of E, right? Expanding. I'll say this again. My first point also reinforces the last point. Start small but smart. It is a good thing, to want to have everything, but this issue of entrepreneurship is a learning process. You can't have everything in one. So the little you have, start with that. Because again, I gave you my own experience. There was this project I was thinking about, and you see this issue of procrastination, right? It's very common within young people. But I would say, when God gives you an idea, you're not the only one he's talking to, my brother. He's talking to a lot of other people. So he give you an idea is for execution. If you don't execute, and in a space of time, and like that idea goes dormant, someone else will do. So if you have the idea, man, with the little resources you have, implement, start something. And even if you're talking to someone about what you're doing, at least you have something to show. Okay, I want to do this business, and I already have this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done XYZ. This is what I need. But if you're telling someone you want to do a business and you don't have anything to show, it's a big problem, because then the trust in itself wouldn't be there, because like you don't understand what you're talking about, right? So um, my caution and sort of like motivation to us is to start. Just start with something, and gradually you can expand. With that being said, I love to encourage us to join our side event at the fourth international conference on financing for development. I mean, all of what we've talked about here today uh, uh, have been high on our agenda for youth, and these are some of the advocacies that we hope to take to the conference in Spain. I mean, youth have to be very central to the conversation of financing, because they say we are the future, but we are already impacting our now. So we're not just waiting for the future, right? So I think you just joining us as well will send a good sign out there that we are together and that we're pushing for one thing, that youth are prioritized when it comes to development finance, and how we can even push this idea of innovation and entrepreneurship hub on the continent. I'm aware that there are a couple of them in partly developed countries on the continent. South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria even have some. In my country, I think we have one or two. But I think there is a need to multiply these hubs around the continent for youth innovation, because it creates a safe space, for young people to test their ideas, their solutions before implementing in the real world. So join us, and hope we have a great time of engagement. It has been a pleasure, sort of like giving my own side of, my experience and the experiences of entrepreneurs around the continent. I like to take a break now and uh, allow us to give questions and also comments, and just have a great time of further engagement. Thank you, Yamor.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, and thank you everyone who is joining and who is watching live now. Okay, so we have, because of we're behind time, which I have a very important question, which I believe so we're trying to put to, but let me see which of the questions we're going to ask him right now. Let's see which I believe we should ask Mr. Dennis is okay. So you have worked with institutions like the USAID and the founded companies in energy and education. What lessons from Africans shape startups that serve real needs in our various communities?
Sorry, Yamor, you were breaking a little bit. You want to come in again, please?
Okay, so well, the question I asked is: you've worked with the USAID, and then founded a company in the energy and education sector. Now, what lesson from that journey can you share that would help a young African, shape startups that would serve real needs in their community?
Right. That's a very important question. I do believe that right, from all of my experiences, well, sort of serving as an intern or even an assistant with the USAID here project as well, the American Chamber of Commerce, like the sort of youth organization here and there. One thing I have realized, that development in any country has to be grassrooted, you know, and young people are at the very core of that. Uh, I mean, for most of us, because of war and like the underdevelopment within our respective countries, we have gotten so used to people doing something for us, and we sort of tend to abandon our own responsibilities, to our countries. I guess young people, the lesson is young people have to get involved. They have to get full involved, and our involvement sometimes uh, it has to be based on what we actually need. And regardless of your area of specialty, whether you're in finance, whether you're in politics, whether you're in international relations, whether you're in economics, it doesn't matter. This problem solving oriented way of thinking has to be our new tradition for young people within the African continent. So that would be my biggest lesson there, like just being able to nurture this culture of responsibility to impact change within Africa. That has been my biggest sort of like motivation.
Wow, wow, thank you so much. I mean, you made mention of something. Every development has to be grassrooted. Wow,
Hmm.
that's really, really very important. So our last question before we let Mr. Dennis go, and I think, I mean, I mean, listening to you very well, you've made emphasis on this, and I think now the young people probably want to understand this very well. You know, Oftentimes Western solutions are often, prioritized over local ideas. And
Hmm.
probably you hear an often idea, you feel like, oh, that's way better than this, and you made mention of the fact that every development has to be grassrooted. So the question is, how can African youth push for their own voice and perspective forward? Especially the fact that oftentimes the Western solutions are often prioritized over local ideas?
Mhm. This is a very sort of complicated, um, I would say, area to explore, Yamo. But I would say that at the very core of this, there are two things that come to mind. One, uh, I mean, policy will be the bigger spectrum, right? But then the first solution I would see is African youth themselves getting involved. I made mention of this issue of access to finance being a critical challenge, right, for youth entrepreneurship. How are we solving that as young people? And uh, is it time that we go back to our traditional way of crowdsourcing? You know, that story of my mom and the Susu Club, and where she will go to all of the market women to put a little bit of money together, and then they'll use that for the fish market, the pepper market, and the oil market. I think we young people need to start with that, because yes, we don't have the 10,000, we don't have the 50,000, we don't have the $1 million, but all of us have at least our $1, $1, $1. How are we putting those $1 together, to fund our own youth-oriented initiatives? I think this is one fundamental thing that young people need to look at. And on a broader scope, I think it also boils down to policies, and that has to do with pushing the feet of our government officials to the fire to make policies that are in the interest of youth. How much are we spending behind education? How much are we spending behind innovation and entrepreneurship hub, right? Like, if we have many of these hubs around the continent where young people can go and create ideas, collaborate, Dennis and Yamor collaborating on one sort of African solution for Nigeria that we can use in Sierra Leone, or even in Liberia, it will go a long way. So, to summarize, I would say African youths should rally around fellow youths to make their own impact. And as we do ourselves, we can tell the people, you see what we are doing, you need to support us. And also on a bigger sort of like scope, we need to keep pushing, our voices, keep amplifying our voices for our government to prioritize this issue of entrepreneurship and innovation hubs on the continent. I think those two things will go a very long way in terms of Africa's growth and prosperity.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. So I want to say a big thank you for this. It's a great privilege to have you here, and I think this is very insightful and this is very documented, and so young people can go and watch this, after this is ended, especially on um, LinkedIn as well too. And we'll come to the end of this section, but one before we let you go, I want to ask a last question we always ask our speakers, and this is: you've had a lot of experiences. You're a young man, but you've had to do it. You've had to work with a lot of people. You had to partner with people. You had to come. You had to do a whole lot with people. What advice would you give someone? Something you probably wish someone should know better than you knew. What advice would you want them to know?
Mm, that's a tough one, Emo. Because we all have had some quite an experiences, like we've had a couple of experiences. Um, but I would say to any young person sort of uh, coming up as well, you know, know where you're going. Just know where you're going. You know, um, I think that in itself saves you a lot of headache. And at the very metrics of that is knowing where you are coming from. When we know from whence we come from, it sort of helps us to know where we are going better. Because I say this, there are a plethora of opportunities around, and if you're going to take all of the opportunities, you're going to go everywhere. And if you're going to take all of the opportunities, you're going to go anywhere. But if you know where you're going and what you want to achieve, I guess it leads you in the right direction and faster, I would say. Um, and if you have a picture of what you want to become, if you want to be a diplomat, or you want to be a successful entrepreneur, if you want to be president, or anything which you have aspired to be. I guess just putting that in perspective and setting your timelines and praying that God helps you, of course, in line with your own efforts and your hard work. I think that is the most important lesson that I've learned all through my own growing process, and I'm still growing, like and experiencing, also learning life lessons.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Dennis. And I'm really grateful for everyone who's joined us. And today we've come to the end of this section. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And Mr. Dennis, I'm really, really grateful, really, really grateful, staying, showing up. We're really grateful. And thanks so much for the insight and the knowledge you shared. And everyone, thank you so much for joining as well, too.
Thank you, my brother. Yeah, it's been a wonderful time discussing